Everybody, thanks for joining. Still excited. A lot of stuff happening here. We're in part 3 of The Pen of an Underdog. Please subscribe. Check out the link. Take the shortcut. You can get the book on Amazon, The Pen of an Underdog by Ives. Here's the link. So in part 3, we're at the subchapter. Now it's called An Education After an Education. An Education After an Education. And what do I mean by that? So I did my formal education, right? From a squandered past, a 1.79 GPA, to finishing high honors with a bachelor's degree. That was my education. That was my formal education. But like anything in life, it's a continuous improvement. It doesn't stop. Knowledge just has to keep getting layered on, including emotional knowledge, emotional intelligence. So here I was. Everything was going good. I was happy. My new career had started in Cincinnati, and I was all about making first impressions. This first impression I call the devil wears coach, okay? And I jokingly say that because in order to wear Prada, like the movie, you have to be sophisticated, like New York sophistication. This woman's name was Martha Massasoit. She was not sophisticated, but she was highly intelligent. She went to great schools, and although she was smart, she could have been bipolar, schizophrenic. I know life had beaten her down, right? And when I say those things like bipolar, schizophrenic, it's not a spin on words. Like I would honestly describe her as aggressive, bipolar, schizophrenic, kind, happy, angry, vengeful. Like there was a lot happening. The trickiest part with that was her influence. She controlled nationwide close to $500 million, billion with a B, $500 million. She was like the Category 5 tornado behind the Cincinnati skyline. And I have to emphasize like how she was, because this was the education. The education was realizing that I wasn't there representing myself. I was there representing something bigger. I was representing my company. I was representing the new directors that hired me. I was representing Freddie McVicker, the vice president. I wasn't there just representing myself. I was there representing, over 20 manufacturers. So taking things personally wasn't the right approach. Okay. And this is the education after the education. And here's how it started. We're in the conference room, 15th floor, downtown Cincinnati. Everybody's sharing niceties, talking about the weekend, talking about what's coming up, travel. And all of a sudden the door slammed. And everybody in the meeting was like, oh, no, here she comes. Sit down. And everybody it was like kindergarten class, where it went from light and there was joy and happiness, and people are excited to see each other. There were some hugs, some handshakes, and all of a sudden, everybody was stone-faced. Like, okay, this should be interested. I was like, what is going to walk in right now? And the most bubbly, energetic, charismatic person walks in, handing out compliments. Oh, I love that dress. You look so pretty. Look at those earrings. Great to see you. How did everything go on baseball this weekend? Good. You're a good coach. You're a good man. Excited to start this meeting. And I was like, okay, that's not so bad. Like I didn't understand the reaction to what presented itself in the room. So Martha Massasoit, controlling $500 million, sits at the head of the table. I just happened to be coincidentally sitting directly to her left on the 90-degree angle of the table. And I wanted to say hello, but too many things were happening. I just wanted to abruptly say hello. I'm so-and-so. I work for PSS. I'm the assistant sales manager. This is too fast. So stack of papers were coming my way. She had already had a copy. Okay. She had a copy. And I was like, okay, she has a copy. So I took the papers. I took one and I passed it directly across the table to Denzel. Now, this is where it happened. She looked at me, stared, death stare, eyes dilated through my soul, and she started to shout. And she said, oh, thank you, by the way. Why wouldn't you hand me one? Rude. Who are you anyway? What are you doing here? So that was the first impression. And I was trying to, gather my thoughts and say, oh, I just started. I was waiting for a bailout from Denzel across the table to say, oh, hey, Martha, he works for PSS. He's with me. Nothing. So she looks at me again. She's like, what is wrong with you? Are you drunk or something? And I just did not know what was going on. It went from like compliments to praising everyone and being charismatic to asking me if I was drunk. And I was like, I don't know what to do here. I'm just going to try to be funny and laugh it off. And I said, oh, I said, well, yesterday was Cinco de Mayo. No, I am not. And anyway, she's like, did you just say you're drunk? You're drunk? And so that was the first impression. So I'm sitting there at the end of the meeting. She's about to walk out. And she goes, hey, kid, you're out of your league and you don't belong here. Good luck with that. So crushing. Okay. Here I was on my wave of momentum. I was feeling good. My self-esteem was high, and insert the education after the education. Now I look back, there's a couple things. I would not be able to take down that dragon, that beast at the time. I was trying to accomplish something else. But looking back, there was a lot of injustice happening there. Somebody with more seniority should have stepped up. But this was the problem. Everybody in that room was representing hundreds of millions of dollars worth of business. They couldn't jeopardize that to slay the dragon, given that the dragon was so powerful. So everybody just sit back and accepted the abuse. Now, not only did the first impression not end there, it went to the corporate floor to her boss. Her boss was a guy named Cale you met. He was animated, quirky. He was a great speaker. Remember being later on in the career, we were at a couple of conventions and he would perform magic tricks. I also heard he had like a teddy bear collection. Just a unique dude, right? So Martha had gone to Cale and said that the new kid from PSS was drunk. And I couldn't believe it. The ultimate manipulation. It was embarrassing. So Cordier calls me in his office. He's like, hey, I talked to Cale. Cale said something that you were drunk at the meeting. And I was like, Cartier, you've known me for a short amount of time. I think it's not in my character to show up anywhere professionally drinking. It just isn't. So he's like, look, this person, Martha Massasoit, is a monster. This happens all the time. She bullies people. Nobody says anything, and she manages up very well. So, given that Cale you met was her boss, and she gave and fed him all the right things. And so if she was feeding him all the right things and reporting up good, if she layered in anything that was manipulative or had a hidden agenda, Cale just went on and believed it. Okay, so that was my first meeting. And that was pretty bad. I'm going to have to go back to Chicago with my tail tucked between my legs and just really suck this one up. It was hard times for a while. It was psychological warfare because I would overthink everything that had happened. And looking back, it was pretty serious. It was very unfair. How that happened. But the Devil Wears Coach started to present herself a little more. I was in the car with Denzel. Denzel became a great mentor. I'd go to lunch with him 3 or 4 times a week. He'd teach me the business. I knew his history. I know how he liked his steak. I knew about his family, everything. I'm in Denzel's car and we're having a great conversation. We're driving around Cincinnati, going in stores, talking to people. Denzel knew everybody. And overall, Denzel was a confident guy. He spoke well. He spoke fast. He was confident. He was nice. Phone rings. Blood pressure through the roof. His face turns red. He starts rubbing his head. Doing this, going behind his neck. And I never saw Denzel like that. And I was thinking to myself, like, what is it? And so, sure enough, here it is. The Devil Wears is calling him. yelling at him. Now, here's a man, he was well into his 50s, right? He was in his 50s. His reaction should never happen on the face of planet Earth, I thought to myself. Like, that is no way to live. How could you just not be transparent or remove this situation? And it was so complex, I started to realize I can't move this. I can't do anything. Like that fire breathing dragon, the devil wears coach. I can't touch that. Denzel couldn't touch that. Manfredi couldn't touch it. Cartier couldn't touch it because what was at stake? It was a bigger piece of any one individual. It was more a collective effort. Shameful for sure. For her to be in that situation and do that was just shameful. So, more stories. Again, this is the fabric of building layers onto this story. The Pen of an Underdog. Check it out. It's on Amazon. Thanks for joining. Let's stay connected.